Hello, and welcome to Meet Your Next Best Hire, a podcast featuring and highlighting top industry real estate leaders looking to land their next venture in the job marketplace. I'm Kelsi Cory, your host. With over a decade of real estate executive search and recruiting experience, and the founder of Cory Executive Recruiting and Leaders on Deck, I've had the unique privilege of partnering with top real estate firms to recruit and place high-level leaders across the country. In this podcast, we will have the amazing opportunity to hear top real estate industry leaders sharing their career stories, leadership and management style, and ultimately what they're known for in their craft. I can't wait to dive in and connect you with the best talent in the marketplace. Let's dive in together.
Okay, everybody, I am so excited to introduce to you somebody I've had the privilege of getting to learn more about and ultimately build a awesome relationship with. We have John Caley today. He is a chief investments officer, and he's honestly worked in every single vertical of real estate you can imagine. And we're going to actually hear directly from John, a little bit more about him, his experience, his leadership style, and ultimately what he's looking for in his next opportunity, next venture. So, John, we're just going to head right into this right now. And again, we're so excited for our audience to get to know you. Can you share with us, at a high level, how did you get into the industry? Just a little background of your story.
Sure. And it's great to be here today. Kelsi, thanks for making the time for me. My career in real estate began actually working in steakhouse of all places. A guy that I worked with in college was cooking steaks, and he was a few years ahead of me. And we worked in the same place and enjoyed our friendship. And he had gotten out and gotten into commercial real estate appraisal. And I was getting ready to graduate, and I was looking for different pathways. And I thought I was going to go to law school. That's something I didn't want to jump back in and spend a lot of time in school. I wanted to get out and do something. So he invited me down to his office, and I went down, and he was working in a high rise in Tucson, Arizona, which is a little bit of an oxymoron because there's only about 3 of them. And I liked the idea of what he did in real estate. He was a commercial appraiser. So I started in appraisal by really just learning the business from a valuation standpoint. And I did that for about 5 years and moved from Arizona to California, where I had family, and got into the appraisal business there. Made a transition out of appraisal, let's call it 4 or 5 years out of college, into more of the investment side. And you were gracious enough to say I've worked in every vertical. I've had a lot of positions, which is a nice way of saying it, but I have had exposure to just about every product type: office, retail, industrial, multifamily, over the last 25 years working on real estate investment management platforms. I'm probably most skilled in the industrial space, followed by office, retail, and then multifamily. I've had some experience with life science product, some hospitality, now a little bit in data center as well. But at a high level, I've worked on multi-billion-dollar transactions, managed billion-dollar portfolios for public and private platforms, and managed, let's call it, in excess of 3.5 to 4 billion of investor equities. Been fortunate to gain some really good experience. Let's call it 14 years ago, I transitioned from more of an acquisitions related skill set to more of a capital raising skill set. And over the last 14 years, I have moved into more of let's call it a capital markets role, where I create programmatic joint ventures. And I've done that for a number of companies, and I've done it privately. And I've done about 1.2 billion there, and I've got another 1.5 to 1.7 under contract as of today. So I really enjoy that aspect of the real estate space and have kind of grown into it. So that's sort of a high level overview.
Perfect.
Of the background.
No, well done. Like you said, almost every aspect of real estate. So it's really unique that you can bring that to the table. And let's move into, ultimately this kind of is, meshing into what we just went over, but what are you ultimately known for in your craft? Like, if you could give us a high level overview. I know it's one of those things. It's like, how do you pull it together? But how would you describe that to us?
I think I would start with a character trait, and it's probably good and bad. I get called persistent a lot, like a dog with a bone. I find that I'm a persistent person. I don't take no the first time relatively easy. I think it's important to continue to strive for things, and that's probably the most prominent trait is I tend not to give up. I tend not to quit when other people have encounter obstacles, that just kind of eggs me on to go a little further. And whether that's regard to structuring a transaction, sometimes there's more than one way to actually achieve that, whether it's raising capital or bringing the buyer and seller to the table or financing it. There's multiple ways sometimes to get to the goal line. And I think that persistence has served me well to come at problems, transactions, capital solutions in a circumspect manner. So I think that's probably the character trait I would start with. I think it manifests itself in three things that are really important to me in the business, and that is relationships at the top, communication and transparency, and then I just love what I do. From a relationship standpoint, I've always tried to continue to keep relationships, to work relationships, to build them over my career, and it served me really well all the way back to appraisal when I would be confirming sales on a telephone call and with the head of acquisitions or an acquisitions officer. Most of those people are CEOs today or board members or the head of their department at different kinds of managers. And they remember me from calling on my appraisal days. So relationships are important. I think people want to feel valued. And I think to be relationally focused in this day and age versus transaction focused, just making money, that's how I try to differentiate. And I think that brings a certain level of quality to the conversations. So that would be the first offshoot of persistence. The second would be communication and transparency. I think given that we've been through some pretty difficult market cycles with the GFC and now the recent COVID pandemic, and then coming out of it, this economy that we're currently in, I think people appreciate transparency and not hiding the football, so to speak. And if you're able to communicate that through the transaction you're working on, the relationship you're trying to establish with capital, whatever you're trying to do in the space, I think that goes a long way with people because we're busy, everybody's busy, and time is valuable and alignment is important, and that comes through transparent communication. And then really the last thing is I really love what I do. I that sounds corny, but I liken it to playing Monopoly and standing on the board. Like I don't put the game away like when you were a kid. Yeah. I love to keep going around the board, and sometimes you gotta pay the piper, and you land on Boardwalk or Park Place, and it costs a lot. Exactly. But then they land on Pennsylvania, and you've got all the greens, and so you land on free parking if you play that way with all the money in the pot. So I just love it. I love it. I love to work with people. I like to establish relationships, and it's fun to put points in the board, right? And what we do is based upon how we succeed monetarily and how we buy and the returns that we offer and establish for investors. So
excellent. I love it. And I think, since I've known you, I've actually got to experience a lot of the things that you're talking about. And there's some people out there in the world, right? There's a lot of talk out there, but what's really going behind the scenes? And I think you've demonstrated that time and time again, that relationships are everything. And you always provide so much value even just with our relationship and so forth.
I appreciate
how can we exchange ideas? How can we collaborate? What is something I can learn from you? And I think that's what's so unique about what you do bring to the table. And honestly, persistence is everything. And the type of role that you're in, if somebody doesn't want that as their main character trait, then I would definitely say that it's probably a huge advantage that you bring to the table. And that leads into my next question. So we can move into, how would you describe your leadership management style, and how has that impacted the bottom line?
I think it comes from having worked with a lot of different types of people over the course of my career. Early on, I had some difficult personalities I had to learn to work with, been yelled at, screamed at, nothing's ever good enough with the material that you produce. And then I've had really good teachers that taught me all the way back in appraisal how to write a 150-page, FIREA USPAP conforming appraisal report. And I just remembered the people that gave me the time of the day and spoke to me that really didn't need to, and spoke to me with respect. And I can remember all of them. And some of them are very prominent people in the international real estate space today and domestically. And if I mention their names, I won't. But if I did, you'd be like, oh, sure. We know who they are. They're the CEO of the second largest real estate company in the world. And they valued me. And so I've learned to, not perfectly, but I endeavor to pass that on. I like working in groups. I like getting to know people. And because people ultimately will perform and feel value if they are valued. And I don't mean feel valued. You actually have to value people, right? And that comes from understanding their strong suits, their gifts, and their talents, and putting them where they can achieve that, and then helping craft those skills that they have. And I think that comes from when you have a certain degree of experience, you can pass along a lot of the things you've learned from the mistakes that you've made and the achievements. And I think that's best accomplished in small groups. And so I do like putting together working groups of people to try to achieve the goals and whatever those may be.
Love it, love it, love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk all day about your background and what you bring to the table, but for our audience and our network, we hope that you found a lot of value with our conversation with John Caley. I cannot recommend him enough. You definitely want to add him to your network, get to know him. What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you, John?
Sure. There's a couple ways. You can find me on LinkedIn, John Caley, Caley, and it's pretty easy to find. And then I'm also the founder of Walnut Investors, and Walnut Investors is my own consulting, investment management, capital advisory platform. And that's been around for about 11 years, www.walnutinvestors.com. And you can connect with me there as well. Would love to chat.
Awesome, awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. I'm so excited. Thank you for your time today. And I can't wait to be able to share with our network. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsi. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thanks again for listening and sharing your time with us on the show, Meet Your Next Best Hire. I hope you enjoyed listening to and learning from another incredible leader our industry is so fortunate to have in the real estate space. If you're a high-level leader within the diverse real estate industry and looking to land your next best venture and would love to share your story from your own voice and perspective, then be sure to check out our firm at Cory Executive Recruiting and Leaders on Deck via CoryExecutive.com. Our mission is to continue to be trailblazers within the recruitment space and bring meaningful leaders to the forefront to drive growth and empower people. If you enjoyed this session, please like, comment, and subscribe to support us and our partners at Multifamily Media Network. Stay tuned and come join us on our journey.